No, I was going to say, I think I have the toughest spot since I'm last. So thanks a lot for having me. It's been a really interesting day. To put it out there, I am not technical either, only a little bit technical. And I learned a lot today because I work in the marketing world, but on the marketing automation side and database side. So this is all new to me, and it's been interesting. So it's been kind of, so Dave's talk kind of set me up really well. Bill's talk this morning did as well, and so did Rasmus, right? Okay. He also set it up great, but I'll kind of zip through these first ones. But so we give this talk a lot to marketers, and what Bill was talking a little bit about this morning, a little bit of the best of times because there's so many options, and the worst of times. So I'm going to show. So it's a nice way to wrap the day up, actually, to show the slide again because there's so many options, and it's actually, I think it's 3874 or something like that. It's a lot of new marketing technology out there. And then in addition to that, there's a bunch of new roles. In fact, Dave and I were talking at lunch. I was thinking, I said, is it an anachronism to say there was a CMO in 2005? There probably were, but it's a term that I don't remember hearing it then, and it's, of course, very prevalent now. And now there's people like chief marketing technologist or other Cs with lots of things behind them that we have not heard of before. So, of course, again, best of times, there's so many great things that technology can do for us. And it's kind of exciting time to be in the marketing world. But of course, you guys know this really, really well, kind of the worst of times too, because as you add more marketing to the stack, there's more things that can go wrong. There's things that add to the budget, complexity, etc. So at the end of the day, a lot of people get kind of stuck in this almost in a paralysis mode. There's so much to do. There's so many capabilities, but we're not using them to their fullest extent, or we're just kind of like, oh my gosh, what do I do here? So you're not really connecting with the end consumer. So kind of an interesting statistic. So 62% of those CMOs feel like they're doing, are feeling that pressure to really deliver. And they're also saying that it's increasing. So a lot of pressure. And they're also thinking to themselves, how do I deliver on that omni-channel experience? So they have a lot of pressure from many different angles. It seems like we're responding to the pressure. Actually, a lot of people that, we talked a little bit about big data and, whether you need it or not and how that can sometimes add to that paralysis. But a lot of CMOs actually think that they're dealing with it pretty well. And you can see some of the other complexity things that they think they're doing pretty well. But there is a big disconnect, actually. Almost half of the brands think they have a really strong capability to connect with consumers, but consumers are not really agreeing with that. Almost 65% are saying they're not really giving me relevant communications. And then, we've talked, it's been kind of interesting because I thought I might hear a little bit more about mobile web or things like that. And of course, me being a newbie to the CMS, maybe that's kind of a given. But, that's just making things more complex, at least in a lot of other areas of marketing. And, of course, all of you know this very, very well. We'll talk about some other statistics throughout the presentation, but mobile is it's not just designing for mobile. It's not just making a mobile website, but it's kind of thinking about mobile from end to end. So it has to you have to really kind of orchestrate the experience for those people. And then, of course, tons and tons of data to deal with. So what is a marketer to do? Really, Dave touched on this a little bit. There's data overload, all of those things, but it's really, there's actually a lot. Almost every company has some piece of this technology in place. some piece or many pieces in place. And so it's really not about, what I want to talk about today is, let's take what you have, and it's really more about evolving kind of where you are. So if your organization is crawling right now, maybe you get to walking. If they're walking right now, maybe you get to running. So I'm going to go through a bunch of different strategies that are kind of from my part of the marketing world, and then give some ideas on kind of how to maybe go from step to step. So I'll start first with the data. We talked about this, but here, Bill talked a little bit about this, but here's the full every year, and I wish it showed up better, but every single year how it's increased. So I have even a year before Bill's, it was only 150 in 2011, so kind of crazy. And then, of course, there's so many different touch points, and of course, this is where the beautiful sites that you guys are helping to create end up on phones and tablets, phablets, whatever you want to call them. So lots of data coming from those areas. But it really, especially for our technology, marketing automation, and the cloud, the marketing cloud that you hear about, data is really the center of the universe. And so I want to talk a little bit about where we're getting some of that data from. Clearly, some of it is from the CMS. But there's also, when you're thinking about kind of the customer experience and how you want to bring those customers along their journey, there's, of course, these are kind of the main pieces that I'm going to talk about. So really profile information, of course, email, web, whether it's from the website or other places that they've come from, ads, etc., the mobile, social, and then key integrations. And it could be an integration with the CMS, but it could also be an integration with a CRM system or other outside data sources. So there's actually purchase data, a lot of different places where this data can come from. Okay, oops, sorry. Okay. So, I know you've all gone to different websites, and there's good experiences and bad experiences regarding kind of what people are collecting about you. Generally, we have a lot of this information already, whether it's just first name, last name, whether I have a fish or an iguana, or, there's just all sorts of data that people collect out on forms, etc. So I think one of the first things to do is kind of take stock of what that data is, what the data is that you have already. And then if your organization feels that they really need to capture more information, one of the things I like to suggest now is actually doing a progressive type of form, so that you're just getting little snippets of information from people as they come back to the website. And you can make this very beautiful, very seamless part of the web. Of course, we orchestrate that and work with lots of technologies like yours to do it. But the nice thing is I've come and given them a little bit of information. I come back, they ask me completely different questions. So it starts building my profile over time, and it's less of an annoyance from my perspective, and just gives me a little bit more to work from as a marketer, so that I can really tailor the messages. So this is really kind of, I'll refer to it as explicit data, and then we'll talk about implicit data too. And that's really, we'll talk about that in a sec. So in addition, I wanted to show you a good example. Besides forms, of course, are preference centers. And I have kind of mixed feelings about preference centers, because I feel like people never go back to them. It's very, they're kind of a tough one. Groupon does a pretty good job, because they don't waste time with some of the other kind of dumb things that people ask on preference centers sometimes. They actually go in and they ask you if you want deals for men or women or both, and then just get down in what kind of deals you want to get. So it's pretty practical, because they have so many different kinds of deals that they can serve up to you. There's other ways that they could probably go about getting this information from an implicit, which things are you clicking on, which offers are you interested in. But this is as far as preference centers are concerned, and if that's something that your marketing people are dying to have. this is a pretty good example. And then, of course, there's data from external systems. I don't have a little icon for the CMS, but it should be up there. It's one of the ones that, you're collecting, of course, lots of different data, but the other kinds of data that really help inform a better customer experience. Of course, CRM, web analytics, that's all hand in hand with the website, e-commerce data, and then even inventory data can be really great. All right, so you have all this great data. What are you going to do with it? One of the things, and this is really an example of kind of that implicit data that I was talking about. So data from actions, data, and this is a very common piece of a marketing automation system, but what have I been doing? I've purchased something in the last 6 months. I've actually entered a location so that it's maybe a beacon, or I crossed a geofence, for example. I might have had an open on my mobile device, or I might have actually, this is some data again from one of those outside systems. I've retweeted something in the last 5 days. So there's this segmentation, and being able to be this granular really starts to make a great customer experience. And I know you guys as web CMS content providers, that's the whole idea. It's making a great customer experience, not just on the web. These are your colleagues that are trying to bring it all together. Oh, there we go. Sorry, animation. I don't know who said they hated it, but I agree. This is an example of kind of rules-driven automation. So, segmentation is one thing. That's really just honing that list, very specific. But this gives an example of, some automated things that happen as a matter of course throughout the life cycle of a journey of customer interacting with your brand. So, and of course, there's different rules, and depending if they've done different things, they can go into different tracks, et cetera. Pretty standard, but a great way to use that additional data that you have. And then the third kind of really great way to use this super detailed level of data is in a scoring model. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about scoring, so I don't want to take, steal my own thunder here, but scoring, of course, I think, does everybody use scoring internally at their companies? Yeah? Okay, cool. That's good. I mean, it's not, a lot of companies are afraid to implement, because it feels a little overwhelming. But once you put something in place, it can be a really powerful way to use the data that you're collecting. And this just gives a little bit of an example of what, how some of those behaviors do for you. So I wanted to show you a quick example of another kind of, this is just a great welcome series in the first place, a great way to interact with a customer. But they have a very clever way of collecting additional information. Of course, they send out a standard. So most welcome series usually are one email, which is kind of missing the boat. Actually, multiple email streams is much more effective. But so they've got their regular thank you, but then they're also collecting additional information on what particular exhibits people wanted to see when they were at the aquarium. So it's a really kind of a very gentle way to add additional data to the database. And then once they've asked you that question on the survey, that is informing some of the creative on the third example. And then on the fourth in the series, they're actually asking you to share the content. So another great way to propagate your content that we were just talking about on the last one out into the stratosphere, so to speak. So as far as kind of from a crawl, walk, run perspective, of course, essential, you've got to just identify, take stock, what do you have in-house, what do you need? Use those multi-touch kind of campaigns to as a data gathering device. So I love how they added some of those additional survey elements. And then make sure that you're actually talking to the other departments within the company. Your marketers hopefully should be coming to you and asking you, hey, how can I get some of that data that you have? So, and hopefully you're going to be going to them with maybe some ideas of how they could use the data that you have. But it's all about having kind of the right data, not just lots of data. So of course I have to talk about email. So I used to work for Silverpop, which was purchased by IBM a couple years ago. And their roots were very email centric, and now we're part of the IBM Marketing Cloud. But email, of course, is, I don't know if I would say near and dear to my heart, but certainly I've had a lot of experience, a lot of years of talking about it. So does anybody know what is significant about this year?
That first email?
Yep, very good guess. And this guy is Raymond Tomlinson. So his team, he's actually the one who came up with the @sign thing. But the kind of funny thing is, of course, and he had to print out the email to read it because he didn't even have a monitor. It was all coded and everything. So just kind of a fun fact. But this year alone, 75 trillion messages will be sent. And probably by 2020, it's going to go up to 90 trillion. So why are we sending so many emails? And I'm sure a lot of you feel a little bit the same. There's so much coming into my box. Well, part of the reason is it has the best ROI for channels. So all these different channels that are out there, and I don't know if you can read them: online display, mobile marketing, affiliate, social, offline, paid search, content, SEO. They asked marketers which channel has the best ROI, and it still is email. So a lot of emails are going to keep going out the door. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to make them a little bit better, as far as kind of putting the whole strategy together. And then customers actually prefer it. I know, there's a lot of talk, and we'll talk a little bit more about, SMS as a channel and mobile as a channel as well. But I know me personally, I do like to get kind of marketing messages in my email because that lets me, either get rid of them or keep them, but they're in a good place and they're not cluttering up my text or that kind of thing. And how can we make it better? Of course, you guys are very, we were talking a little bit about the Google Analytics integration that Magnolia has. Viewing that campaign performance and how those different pages are doing, same thing. You have to do that with email as well. It's kind of still surprises me when I talk to email marketers sometimes how many people are not kind of looking at that campaign performance. I'm also looking at kind of the device usage and where people are coming from, what they're looking at their email on, and then the audience in general. So let's just go into a couple of those areas. So very typical statistics that people are gonna want to see. And these are just kind of more from the macro level, but also down to the micro level. But in addition to these metrics, there's actually some really great other software out there. This is actually one of our partners, but it allows you in a really easy way to see that from start to finish the ROI of the marketing programs. And so we actually had a really interesting talk with a guy from Morgan Stanley who's not our client, but was using the Allocadia software and was just talking about how easy it was to prove to his management and how he took all the spreadsheets out from the different campaigns that he was running, and he could do his whole budget and show the results within just a couple days to his management team and really prove the value of his job. So, you wouldn't think of Morgan Stanley. I think maybe Dave, you were talking about like the marketers versus the e-commerce people. You wouldn't think of Morgan Stanley as a big, like, hey, you have to prove your ROI of your program, but they're doing banner ads, they're doing all of those things. And so having this level of proof of kind of how you're doing on your job is pretty powerful. And then down to kind of more of a micro, we put out, and there's other people that do too, but really great report that actually compares open rates by industry. and so that people can actually see kind of how they're doing on those different metrics against people that are in their same kind of category. So that's a really great way to just, I always say you really have to measure against yourself, but it always is good to use some of these different statistics from around the industry to make sure that you're kind of on track. And then, of course, you guys are very familiar with this. I'm sure people are A/B testing the web pages all the time that you're putting together in Magnolia, but it's a very easy thing to do is testing email. And let me show you actually, we'll do a little, you guys will get this in a minute, but just show you a little bit of the power of A/B testing. And so this is I was talking at lunch. I have to say, IBM is not I wouldn't say that we're really well known for our awesome marketing. I hate to say that about my own company, but it's true. So these are two different product pages, and so luckily they did do some testing on this because which one do you think was the winner? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the not surprisingly, the one with less copy, a better call to action, etc., won the day. So thank goodness our marketers. But look at how ridiculous this increase is. So it just goes to show this happens to be a web example, of course, but it's just as valid for email. And actually, one of our customers, Gilt, they do about 500 to 600 A/B tests like a month. I mean, it's crazy. They test the heck out of everything. So it's sometimes a little bit forgotten. Like, hey, let's, especially if you have had results from a campaign and you think, oh, this has done so awesome in the past, we're just going to keep going with it. Test, of course. So that was pretty obvious one. One from kind of I wouldn't say that Silverpop was a lot better marketer than IBM, but I'm slightly better. But one of the things that we found that was really, really great and very effective for driving people not only back to our website, but also getting some interaction with our white papers was putting embedding video actually in the white papers. So you just have to kind of test and decide. We were talking a little bit about personalization as well. Using that data as a way to personalize. I realize that personalization on the web means a little bit different than personalization on an email in a way. But, this is a nice example. It's, one of our fake companies, but it's your first purchase, it's your 1-year anniversary. It actually brings up accessories that I know you don't have because I know you have that bike. And so it's just a really nice way that I think a lot of companies, it's not that hard to do, but they don't even use kind of the basics of the platform. And so, and I think a lot of these examples are most platforms that you as companies have in place can do this stuff, but for some reason, the email marketers are not, they're not doing it. And it's really easy. So another one that may be not totally obvious, but if you look at the same exact sends or the same exact mailing, but with an automated send versus manually sending it. So the automated sends, and I guess it's because it just people are, I can't totally explain why it does better, but they just do. And I think it's partly because you're catching people at the right time. Maybe the manual send has a little bit more time that it's delayed. But on both examples, the click-through rate and the unique open rate are much better on the automated send. So again, it's kind of one of those, it's kind of obvious. But I think if you went back to the people that you're working with inside the company, saying, hey, what are we automating? Do we have all this stuff automated? You might be kind of surprised at how many things they don't have automated. So a couple ideas for some campaigns to automate. And again, these seem really obvious, and I've talked about them literally for the past 8 years, like all this kind of stuff, but people still aren't doing it for whatever reason. And some of these are super simple to implement. So, and most of the technologies that you're using today can do it pretty easily. And some of it's, sending some web analytics stuff to the marketing automation platform. So pretty easy, but these are some good ones to do. And if you think about yourself as a consumer and how many of these different ones you do or don't get from companies that you work with. Like, I get a few browse abandons, but not that many. I'm starting to get a few more, but it's kind of surprising like how much money is in browse abandon and the biggest brands are not doing it. Or how much, or even the replenishment reminders. So obvious, but a lot of people aren't doing them. Or the product reviews even. So it's kind of like some low-hanging fruit that really are effective. Okay, so as far as understanding customer device usage, you guys are so used to knowing what browser did somebody come in on, what exactly what people are doing on the website, how you've got that dialed in, and you can actually dial it in. And hopefully most marketers are doing this, but you can dial it in on email as well, and really understanding. This particular software has some cool things where it's measuring, did somebody just glance at an email, did they skim it, or did they read it? So the seconds somebody actually spends on an email, where they're coming from, desktop, webmail, or mobile, and then actually gets down to the device. But so that it's another great way to really understand how people are viewing the information. And then, of course, you guys were talking a lot about designing, reusing content. It's the same kind of concept here too. Designing for the most common denominator across the board from a mobile perspective. And it's a good thing to just kind of remind yourself about, and we all as consumers know this is true, but 80% of people, if it looks crummy, delete. And I just thought, I think this one is so interesting, speaking of preference centers or funny kind of things that marketers put out there. But, clearly if you have your, that software, tracking software in place, you can kind of see if something's going to look terrible on a device, and maybe, you need to redesign for mobile or that kind of thing. Restoration Hardware went ahead and actually asked, do you have difficulty viewing our emails? So I don't know, do you guys think this is good preference center, bad? There's no real right answer for this, but it's just it's kind of a funny example. But it does bring up, they have a terrible mobile website, actually. So, because after I saw this, I'm like, I'm gonna go look at their stuff. Not very good. Yeah, really? I was like, really? I'm so sorry, it's terrible. Yeah, no, it's kind of a funny one. And then, we talked a little bit about, as far as understanding your audience, kind of the cool thing about websites is they're really collecting, yes, they're collecting some explicit information, if you have surveys up or polls or, those kinds of things, or progressive forms, et cetera. But really, you're collecting a lot of this information that's very valuable, the implicit stuff. It's capturing a person kind of at that point in time that they're doing something. So it's capturing something that you might want to react to on the fly, when we were talking about those automated messages. So, understanding kind of which, making sure you have all the right kinds of those data is really important, and then leveraging them. So as far as from a mobile perspective, I wanted to just show you a couple examples. So, this doesn't have to be mobile, but so Banana Republic, I don't know if anyone of you is on their list. Yes, I know I am too. But they kudos to them on this particular campaign, because they actually were noticing that, this is actually my colleague's inbox, that she had not clicked on their stuff for a really long time, which is kind of, I mean, they send out something every day. Sometimes, I don't know if they do twice a day, but they literally every day, I have something in my box from them. But they noticed, and I've never, unfortunately, gotten this one on the right, so clearly I've been shopping. But they did listen, and the nice thing about it was they didn't lead with a discount or anything like that, but they actually did, hey, let us know if we're doing something wrong here. You haven't opened one of our 365 emails. I don't know how many they go through before they send you this, but so this is a nice example of they looked at behaviors. She hasn't opened for a while, and then they sent her a re-engagement campaign, which is cool. And then kind of from a B2B perspective, and you guys can appreciate this being, going to a lot of these kind of conferences, they had noticed that she had not checked in at a physical event, at several physical events in a row. They were recording that either in the marketing automation or in their CRM, sharing that, and then did send her a really nice follow-up message to say, hey, you haven't been here, come back. And of course, email is kind of, it's the way to drive people back to the awesome sites that you guys are creating. So as far as from a, from this perspective, you've got to kind of understand at the base level what the performance is of those channels that you're looking at, understand where the messages are being read, and then the best practice, of course, is really capturing that behavior information and then using it, all with the idea that relevance is what's going to get people, coming back, clicking through to the websites that you guys were creating. Okay, scoring. This is kind of a fun one. I know a few of you said that you were using scoring, which is super exciting because I think a lot of marketers still aren't using it. But this is from Pedowitt's group in Atlanta. 68% of marketers say this is really what is, if we score, that's what's really driving a lot of the return, and it's contributing to revenue. So I don't think I have to tell you guys this, but the more data that you have in your database, of course, the better your score is going to be, or not your score, but your scoring model, I should say. But what it's great about is it's really helps you zero on who's your audience. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to sell them? Who is going to be your best prospect? And we were talking a little bit about it at lunch. You don't always know who that's going to be at the end of the day, and that scoring model kind of helps bring that out because it's a living thing. But if you're working, if you haven't started scoring at your company, here, these are some reasons why companies do score. Usually it's if you have prospects and customers both, if you have a direct sales team, usually it's a longer purchase cycle, but it doesn't have to be. And we'll talk about that on the next slide. Lots of decision makers, lots of people looking. It's a total obvious for software. B2B marketers have been using this for a long time. Some successfully, some not, but and usually it integrates with your CRM. But we've looked at some different consumer websites. It's actually, I would say that a lot of consumer companies are not taking advantage of scoring, of this automated scoring. Now, when I started in this industry, actually, I unfortunately am old enough to know about the direct mail scoring stuff that used to happen. So it was very common. It was really common for especially direct mail houses to use big lists, to get a big list, and they would score and rank that, and then that's who would get the catalogs. And somehow with kind of the evolution of the web and email and everything, that scoring expertise has been lost, or they just forgot that it existed or something. But it's actually a really good way to figure out, is somebody engaged? Are they going to churn? Which is a really big deal for retail websites. You know, RFM modeling, it's a really great way to do that. And then, of course, onboarding all the rest. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do with scoring. But then this is just the basics of a scoring model. In case, let me show you. So this, I don't know if any of you have seen this, but this is the scoring model from Sirius Decisions, which is a really prominent B2B like consulting house. But they do a lot of consulting on for all B2B companies. And so the kind of interesting thing about this is, and I'm talking about our internal model here. So those areas in the blue, we actually send those wins straight to sales. So we have some criteria, you know, depending on, like Dave was talking a little bit about it this morning. If they've got this decision maker and this person, and they've looked at these pages, and they've also seen a demo, then they're going to go straight to our sales team. You know, these people that I just highlighted that are kind of in green, those are going to go to our demand generation people, but not to a direct, more expensive salesperson. And then the people down here in this quadrant, they're actually going to go into a nurture program, which is, you know, usually kind of, you know, they might come out of a nurture if they do an activity, but that's where they're going to go first. The kind of interesting thing, and I'll talk about. So we actually decided that this C3 should go, you know, because scoring models should be kind of a living, breathing thing. There's a lot of talk between sales and marketing. What's the best way to score? What are the right attributes that's going to make somebody buy, et cetera. And so we ended up changing our model to give those people to our demand generation, because it turned out they actually did have more interest than we thought. So, and sales might say, well, we need more leads, you know, which is always the kind of the give and take between sales and marketing. But it's one of those kind of underutilized things. And so if you don't have a scoring model in place, I would, you know, start small. And I think, you know, I talked a little bit about the paralysis thing. A lot of companies want to make the perfect model right off the bat. Instead, they should just get started, and then it can iterate as they're going. Got to align with sales, and then also making sure that the sales people and the marketing people, everybody knows like what the model is all about and what goes into it, because that's really important too. And then, you know, just kind of jump in, go for it. So just a couple kind of crawl, walk, run for scoring. And, you know, I think there's, at the end game, you know, you're going to use that really awesome content strategy that we were just talking about in the last presentation to hopefully, you know, influence some of the content that you are presenting to those best scoring people on the web. Okay, we're getting close. Just looking to see. Okay. So we haven't, like I said, we haven't talked a ton about mobile. You know, I think you've all seen some of these crazy statistics. Another couple that I was just reading, 65% of people, of mobile users, check their phone within 15 minutes of waking up and within 15 minutes of going to bed. So that thing is never out of your sight. Like, it's your alarm clock. I mean, I'm wearing this thing. I never thought I would love this, but I kind of do. So, you know, it's never out, and it lets me know if I'm having a call or a text or whatever. So, so it's not going away. It's just getting more crazy. And so, and then, you know, from a Facebook perspective, which obviously is a big advertising platform, 78% of the Facebook users are actually mobile only. They don't even go on the website to check it anymore. So, you know, we were talking a little bit about, I can't remember, the designing for, you know, different things first. And you hear about mobile first and kind of what is that and what really is mobile, but it's not just the channel. It's not just the phone or the device. it's kind of all of these things. It's the data that comes from mobile. It's kind of how you use the devices. We're talking about the car. So, it's all of those things together. And it's not just orchestrating a journey for people who are in mobile, but it's orchestrating that journey across all the different places that they could touch the brand. But let's talk a little bit about, of course, mobile email, because that's near and dear to my heart. Just a couple things to think about, and these are probably things that you don't even think when you're looking at your email in your box, but as the email marketer, the marketer should be thinking about, there's only a limited number of characters in each of these sections. So you have to be very aware of that as we're designing for that small little screen. Only 25, 35, and 85 characters. And it is kind of funny, you would think that, everyone would kind of get it right. Pottery Barn does a good job. They have an awesome pre-header, and their subject line looks good. And then Mitchell and Bob, they did not get it right. You can't really read it, but they have that, are you having trouble? Click to our mobile site or whatever. And so they've totally wasted their 85 characters of pre-header. So just a couple things to think about. So SMS, I kind of have it's a love-hate with SMS because it's an awesome channel, and you can see from this statistic actually is so incredible. So the open rate of SMS promotions are 98%. And they're redeemed 8 times more than email offers. So as a marketer, you'd be like, oh my gosh, we should do all of our stuff on SMS. But it's a totally annoying platform, in my opinion. That's just me, and I certainly don't speak for any millennial, of course, because I'm not in that group. But I don't like getting offers on SMS. I like getting appointment reminders, some of the other things that we'll talk about, but I don't really want a coupon on there. I don't know. I'm sure so I think you just have to be very, it's a great channel for what it is, but you have to be careful who you're, because some people might like to get offers on there. So yeah, I think you have to be careful about who you're communicating to on this channel. But just to give you a couple other ideas for how to use SMS that I think are pretty compelling. Transactional, I think, is awesome. Your deposit just came in at Ameritrade, or your account, or this one is your transaction can't be completed. So it lets you know right away. So that that's something that you want to know if you're doing something and you get it right away. This particular one happens to be for Grubhub. Awesome use of SMS, perfect. You like them to communicate with you because it's instant. They were just there delivering the food. Did you like it? Perfect. They did a little survey. Coupons. Don't love this one, but that's just me. I want to get my coupons in email, but so that might be something where you track and see this person's an email person, this person's an SMS person. Did they open, so that you get the channel right? And then, of course, I've been getting these all from my dentist and my doctor, but this is super handy, and this is appreciated. So you just have to, only about 20% of the overall marketing database is going to opt into mobile. And there's there's certainly ways that you can try to get people to opt in, and usually if they do opt in, they're going to be pretty responsive. They're going to open your stuff. But in general, there's contests, there's all sorts of different, POS systems, and most of you probably had the clerk at a store ask for your mobile number to see if they can SMS you, that kind of thing. So the people who do opt in, it's pretty responsive. But very, very small. You have to pick and choose your stuff. It's kind of pricey though, and it's pretty long setup as well. So just another piece to kind of think about. It does add a few. You have to really decide where it's going to be most effective in kind of the whole marketing mix. Okay, we're almost done. Mobile apps and push. I think we have this one and then social. Then we'll wrap it up. So as far as from a push perspective, there's kind of There's a broadcast push, which is, good. It's just a general message to people. If you have that data in your database, the best is to do, really use it to get the message more narrow. And this is actually a really nice idea. So they've come into an area, they're using location. It's an allergy zone. I know somebody was making fun about having the weather be part of your marketing, but it actually is super effective. So this guy got a message like the allergens are really high in your area, you better take your pill. So it's very specific to that person, and that's kind of information that I might want to receive if I'm opted into a health kind of thing. So it really just depends on what you're doing, but that's a good example, and it can be really good response rates. There's not a lot of brands that at least that I am subscribed to. No, that does not. I am only a sample of one. So. But I don't get a lot of these rich push notifications. So, but if you think about those, like look how great that looks versus kind of the just a regular push. This is much more effective, much more compelling. If you're at the theater, you actually might want to go get that popcorn because you can see what it looks like, and it's but it doesn't interrupt your user. You can do inbox notifications without them having being opted in to push. So there's some kind of cool things that you can do with push that some brands may not know about. And I'll just give you a quick example. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with House. It's kind of it's a cool app that lets you kind of browse content and see like, ooh, how do I want my house to, what products do I want? Shopping for bathrooms. I'm actually thinking about redoing mine pretty soon. So I was looking into this. So they coordinated their email. They have a pretty good email, and then since I have the app, they sent me a little, a push to let me know. So they've got some of the marketing pieces down, but they have a great app. So we'll just talk about some of the good stuff. They have tools, like the app is really well designed. And then they use email and push to kind of get you back there, to get you back using the app. So that's very good. The problem, though, is they could have done a better job actually personalizing the content to me. Maybe putting a bathroom image in there since I'm looking to redo my bathroom. They didn't really orchestrate that for the different channels. And they didn't know that I had been on the website and in their app. So tying that experience back together, as a consumer, you feel like that brands should know how to do that. And it kind of goes back to that slide at the beginning, talking about how consumers really do see that there's a big, like brands aren't kind of putting that all together. But we expect them to because we know that they have the data. So just something to think about. So as far as from kind of wrapping it up from a mobile perspective, keeping it simple, and then see if SMS might be something that will work with cost and kind of what your overall kind of mission is. And then orchestrating the journey to make sure that mobile is part of it because it's not going away. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about social. One more kind of tactic that you can put in with the whole list of those other tactics that I've been talking about. So I think the interesting thing about this one is when you look at 2018, that's like a third of the world's population on social. It's kind of crazy when you think about it from that perspective. So, it's a channel that we can't really, most people are on there in some way, shape, or form, but it's definitely one where you can't ignore it for sure. And if you look at kind of where customers are and how many active users each of these platforms have, and actually the other one that's not on here is Snapchat. It has 100 million users a day. 100 million users a day. So it's one of those, like, we can't deny it. It's going to change. It's going to evolve. So, but it's smart marketers are going to take advantage of social for sure. So let's talk a little bit about it. So I gave this example a little bit earlier, and this is kind of a nice soft, share us on social, let people know you were here. And I'm a mom. I have a 5-year-old daughter. And, so I see a lot of what other moms post about where they're going, what they're doing. And so when somebody posts and says, I loved the Georgia Aquarium, my daughter thought it was awesome. That's a place that I'm going to put on my list probably to go to. So it's really powerful. It's a really powerful way to advertise and get a lot of, it's like getting free paid media. And then this is another nice example of a social ask. And if any of you are on Facebook, then you will recognize the skim. It's one of those ones, like they have nice little articles that catch people's attention, the perfect stuff to post on Facebook. And they ask you right out, here's your link, please post it to Facebook. So they're very deliberate about how they're going about asking for that. And then just a couple things and as consumers, it's a no duh, but sometimes you have to kind of adjust marketers' thinking about it a little bit. But make it super snackable. This is who doesn't want to share the chocolate cream pie recipe. And then yay, we have a good example from IBM. A nice, easy, tweetable, cool image, looks good. And this is another example, actually, that we use a lot. We put these little tweet boxes right in the white paper, so if you click on it, it goes and opens up Twitter and puts the little message right in there. So it's a cool way to share, corporate content. And then this is one of our clients, and they do a really great job. They don't just do the traditional tiny little blue button, but they have a whole bar up here to share on Facebook. So, and perfect kind of content that people love reading those little articles. And then finally, as far as kind of getting people to do advertising for you, a contest is always really popular on social. And this one is you have to guess where this little monster is in New York City, and that's part of the contest. So it's fun. It's good sharing one. And this statistic is kind of mind-blowing. So 1 in every 5 digital ad dollars are going to go to social. Is kind of crazy. So not going away. It's definitely, that's where the people are, so that's where they're going to spend the money. So one way, that's a pretty easy way, and we were talking a little bit about scoring, and you're looking at your customers. Well, you take the profile of those customers and find lookalikes on the social networks. And some agencies are doing this and it's been pretty successful. So it's a great way to find new customers. One example that we had recently was we were working with the city of Melbourne. They really needed to make sure that they had a blowout fashion week. And so they just using social sold their event out in record time. It's because they found exactly the right people that they were going for. So to kind of wrap up social, invite people to engage with you on social, of course. Some people still haven't figured out kind of exactly how they want people to talk about their brand on social, so good thing to do. Make the content super easy to share, and then social advertising is that's an easy way to dip your toe in, is kind of those lookalike models. And that's where the customers are going to be. So as far as from a resource perspective, just a couple things to some white papers that you can pass along to your colleagues in marketing. This is a good one just to talks about just kind of how to set up models, marketing, excellence in operations that we've put out, and then a good mobile engagement one, and that is it. And then of course on our website we've got gobs of resources out there as well, but that's that. So any questions? I know I went through lots of stuff. And I'm the last speaker. You're like, okay, you're 5 minutes over. Time to go. Yeah.
Is the social lookalike modeling, is that just kind of like looking at public data and finding those people that you know have a high like user profile?
Yeah, good question. It's actually a product of Facebook's. So Facebook has an API or that you basically take your best customers and then they use their algorithms and match people up and find lookalikes that look like your customers, and then it posts your ad on their feed. Yeah, yep. So it's one of their products. Anything?
So we were talking about CRM earlier, and you also mentioned social.
Yeah.
What's best practice for getting social to carry properly into the CRM, doing all kinds of things?
Well, that's a good question. There are a couple social CRM platforms, and it's kind of interesting because their whole reason for being is they want to leverage that social information and then build around that. And so JanRain is one, and Gigya is another one that, it goes to that, 3,800 marketing technologies, but there's almost, for any kind of data that you want, there's almost any of those. So they have already hooked up all the APIs, and so if they just have your email address, then they go out and they get, they find your Twitter handle, they find all of those other pieces of information. And so it kind of just depends on what you're going to do with it. If you're just going to, so they have that social CRM, and then, you could use that for marketing. We do have hookups with both of those companies, but, depending on kind of how, we've also got a cool way that it's kind of a flexible key system, so that if someone's coming in with a tweet, but I also have their email address, like it starts to put those things in a record and then ties them together so that I can have a consistent message across all the different platforms, no matter what they're doing, how they came to me in the first place. So it kind of depends. If you're just using it for marketing, that might be a good way, easy way to go. But there's a bigger CRM piece that you can definitely use with like Gigya or JanRain. Anything else? Thanks for your attention. I know it was a long presentation, so I appreciate it.